But okay, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it on this point. Dune Awakening is a good game. It's a much better game than I initially thought because of its downtime period that turned me off. It's not a watchable game. Dune is not a watchable game. It feels much better to play the game firsthand than it does to watch someone else play it. If you are an enjoyer of the survival genre, outside of Rust, you probably want to play the Dune game. If you are looking for an MMORPG game that is like, you know, coded to be an MMORPG first, do not play Dune. It's not for you. If you're not an enjoyer of survival mechanics, it's not the game for you. So I'm gonna end off here on this video because this is the most important video we can watch when it comes to Dune. After that entire nag session I had about why I was wrong about Dune and why it was better than I thought. Why play Dune when I could play modded Minecraft? If that works for you, play modded Minecraft. If modern Minecraft feels better, I'm a sucker for the Dune universe. I like the sandworms. I like the fucking House Harkonnen and House Atreides and their little battle that's going on there. I like everything that's going on in that game from a lore perspective because I'm a gigantic Dune simp. Now, Minecraft doesn't have that yet. Minecraft has some weird shit. And you know what? Okay, this is a tangent. I know this is a tangent. Just give me a second. I'm still dealing with the PTSD of what I saw. I did not know that Minecraft porn was a thing. But these Zoomers be jacking off to blocky tits. That's all I'm saying. I saw a video posted online of a red-headed Minecraft girl. And it concerned me. It concerned me for the next generation. I think my generation's fucked up because we can't even figure out what's between our legs. These kids out here want to fuck blocks. They're fucking squares. They're literally fucking rectangles. And the worst part about the video that I saw, the animation wasn't bad. It was really smooth 60 FPS, good-looking animation, and I was like, what the fuck? That was the most confusing part. Can you please stop looking for porn and everything? Just assume Rule 34 is real and accept someone is going, yeah, no, I wasn't even looking for it. That's the worst part, Relantis. I was scrolling looking for something else and I saw Minecraft porn and I'm like, what the fuck? And I will admit, curiosity got the better of me because I'm like, how the fuck is anyone jacking off to rectangles? And I regret looking. Jesus Christ, that's terrifying. But okay, we're going to end off here. That is my opinion on Dune, why it's better than I think. So let's listen to someone who's been playing this game for 250 hours, because I've only played it for 16. It's almost above the legal age limit at this point.
Hey, I want to preface this entire video by first making one thing clear. I really like this game. As of this recording, I've now got north of 200 hours playtime between preview events earlier this year, the beta weekend back in May, and over the past couple of weeks, I've been participating in the private closed beta, which I can now finally talk about. Yeah. Overall, I've had a lot of fun. In fact, even after all of this time, I am still excited for launch and expect I'll probably double my playtime at least. So yes,
completely understandable. There are very, very good elements to Dune, and if the survival MMORPG genre, I mean, not even MMORPG, if the survival genre is up your alley, then you will play this game and enjoy it.
I like Dune Awakening, but it does have issues. In fact, consider this video my attempt at honing in on some of the bigger, more glaring concerns I have, with the hope that these are areas in which they can improve things, making...
He's gonna say combat. Combat's one of the shittiest parts of this game, I promise you that.
A game that I already enjoy even better. Okay, let's just jump right into it. First up are some server concerns, and there is a couple of layers to this one. So for starters, I expect launch day, if not the entire first weekend, to be a bit of a mess. If you are watching this video on release, I think there's a decent chance that we are dealing with long queue times or servers that are straight up down.
Shockingly, looking at the way that the Dune guys dealt with the server issues, they were a lot faster, a lot better than WoW was with WoD back in the day. Most MMOs are with launches back in the day. I think Dune's done a better job with their servers. They also dropped their servers last night, right? And this is what's pretty interesting. The way the game resets in Dune is that every week there is a Coriolis storm that builds up in the game and wipes out everything in certain regions, right? So it's built into the gameplay. The servers go down for 2 hours and then they're back up. And they've been pretty fucking spot on with that. Now, we were playing Edge of Tomorrow on the very first day of launch because their servers set themselves on fucking fire. But I'm shocked at how good they've actually been with it. The Dune team, the guys making this with their servers, have done a great job. Have you tried Enshrouded? The combat blows RuneScape Wilds and Valheim combat out the water. I haven't tried Enshrouded, no. I have too many games I want to play. I have so many fucking games I want to play. Also, I do have those links open, Jimmy.
And if you do get in and actually get to play, there's an equally strong chance of dealing with a lot of lag, rubber banding, rollbacks, the whole shebang. Now, they have
rubber banding's a bitch.
already released the launch day server list, and for NA alone, I counted 40 servers in total, which are further divided into 20 sietches. You can think of those as just sub-servers that feed into the main server, and the sietches are where all of your progression and character live.
By the way, this thing is so fun to ride around on, but he's made one massive mistake about this game. He put the, he might be traveling from the safe area to the dangerous area, and he's got like a bunch of stuff stacked away in the inventory. But whenever you get the Dune sand bike, if you play this game, get the fucking boost. Get the boost. It's so much better. It's so much fun. You can outrun sandworms with the boost, and it's really, really funny watching this big fucking worm show up behind you as you're fucking boosting towards the nearest rock to try and get away. It's so good. I really like Enshrouded. Stopped playing intentionally because I like uncovering the story, but I don't want to spoil it for myself and be sick of the game before 1.0 release. I'll wait for the 1.0 release then. If Enshrouded is really that good, I would rather wait for the full game release than playing it beforehand. One of my greatest regrets, actually, recently, that I stumbled across was playing this game right here before its full release. It's still in early access. Hades 2 is actually a pretty solid game. And I'm sad that I started playing it and I know all these story elements and I didn't get to experience it as one collective thing. Also, thank you, Super.
In the first half of the game when you're playing in the Haga Basin map. Now, we know that sietches can hold between 40 to 60 players simultaneously, and they upped that cap from what was previously 40 up to 60 fairly recently. So the napkin math here means that they have got enough servers and sietches in North America to support between 32,000 and 48,000 concurrent players, with there being additional servers for EU, as well as some for Asia, Oceania, and South America. And that sounds like it might not be enough, to be honest. I mean, who knows how many people are going to play this game, but 48,000 concurrent just for North America might be on the low end. Now, I assume they could have...
48,000, hold on. Let's look at the... Okay, the game has released. The game technically released yesterday, since we're now the 11th. No, not Spice Wars. Fantastic game, but that's not the one I'm looking at. Spice Wars is worth picking up if you like management RTS kind of games. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. That's a healthy player base. 142,000. And you can see when everyone goes to bed and wakes up. This here was the server rollback. Was about, what was it? It was like 7 this morning. Everyone was offline because we got kicked out for 2 hours, and then it's back.
Of course, spin up more servers and subsequent sieges if the demand is there. But if North America alone can only hold a max of 48,000 players logged in concurrently, I do expect there to be issues. Basically, the entire litany of problems that tend to affect many big multiplayer games on release when you've got thousands of people trying to log in simultaneously, clogging the servers, resulting in poor play experience if you can even get in to play at all. This will probably happen. It's not Dune specific, but I would say there's a decent chance that that fun experience that we are all unfortunately so used to could happen here as well. And if it doesn't, and if launch day server stability is great.
So I've been playing from Africa, right? Which is like the worst place to play from. I have the highest ping. There has been rubber banding. I've had very few server issues aside from when they say the servers are down. The pre-launch day, the servers were an issue. I didn't see issues with the game on launch day, which was yesterday. So I think they've done a pretty good job. Worse than Australia, yes, because Australia at least has the infrastructure. Those criminals in Australia know how to build pipes to the Oceania servers. We don't. We just sit here crying. You got to remember that people in my country tie 2 sticks together and they think that's an internet connection. I want a game like StarCraft 2 arcade games. Core Punk is kind of that, but the future is bleak. I think, I don't know, probably is a bit bleak at the moment. There's never, I don't think there's ever going to be that game that hits. It's like a 1 in a million black swan chance. Nope, Relantis, I've said this a million times. There will never be Starlink in South Africa because my country said, you're allowed to bring Starlink into South Africa if you give up 30% of your company to black people in South Africa. So no, there's never going to be Starlink in my country, Relantis. Literally, they want to steal 30% of Elon Musk's company, and guess what he's not willing to do is give up 30% of his company. He told them to fuck right off, and they were like, okay, well, no one's getting Starlink then.
And we can all get in and play. I will be pleasantly surprised. I'm not expecting that, but I hope it does happen. That'd be great. I would love to be surprised and for that launch experience to be fine. But my server concerns actually extend beyond any like launch specific issues. It is also just with how the whole server and siege system.
Does that prevent you from crossing the borders with a dish? Yes. If you've got a set location with a dish, and I know this because my dad did this. My dad bought Starlink. And then they had to update the terms so that the South African government wouldn't sue them or whatever. If you don't return your dish to the location that it was set for or the country it was set for, within, I think it's a month, it stops working. So you've got 30 days. So it doesn't work like that. I promise you, we've tried every workaround under the sun. We've been looking at this nonstop trying to get away around this.
Is structured in general. So how this works is the first thing you do is you pick a server, and then within that server, as mentioned, you've got 20 available sieges that you then select. Each of those sieges are essentially just their own server specifically for Haga Basin, and all of those then feed into the Deep Desert, which is the larger PvP focused map that you get to in the Endgame, which is what happens after Haga Basin. And the problem that we may very well run into, and I suspect a lot of people will, is if you pick a siege that has more than 60 other people currently logged in, you're going to have to wait in a queue until somebody leaves.
I haven't actually seen a queue. I've yet to see a queue, and I'm in apparently a pretty busy siege, or sub-server as they call it. Oh, anyone with a brain calls it. But I haven't ever been stuck in a queue with this game. I mean, we just logged in just now and we didn't have that problem. What's your bandwidth? Currently, I think it's 400 up. 1 gig down, right? But I've got like a private internet service provider, and they do a pretty decent job. But that's like half my paycheck every month. It's just my internet. Hold on. Also, a push are not bringing in more Starlink uplink terminals, I'm told. It's a company that would bring in terminals. Yeah, they're never going to do that. My country is quite literally never. You are helping with that, ADAX. I'm not going to lie. I'm probably going to waste all of that money on internet connection. But there will never be Starlink in this country. They're gaslighting to player-based numbers. They might be gaslighting player-based numbers. This doesn't... Yeah, you can thank ADAX, Westals. This doesn't feel like an MMO. I'm very concerned about the amount of people you see in the game because you just don't see that many. Like, I'll play for like 3 hours and maybe I'll see one person by happenstance, by mistake. And the only reason when I logged in that we saw anyone at all is because I've built my house, my building, exactly where everyone is, around one of the central hub towns.
And opens up a spot, and if there's a lot of people doing that, you're gonna have to wait that much longer. Now, dealing with full servers and queues in order to get in, that's not uncommon in these kinds of games, but when the full server size of a map is 60 people total, that could...
Hence why I don't want to call this game an MMORPG. 60 players max. Now, that's still double what Blue Protocol was doing. But it's not something I can comfortably call an MMO. Is it an MMO or more like a survival builder? I'd say it's more a survival builder like Rust that's got a few MMO elements to it. It's I would not classify this game as an MMO. It's a good game. It's decent. But it's not an MMO. It's not what I would call.
Could be a problem fairly often. It's going to especially be a problem if you are unlucky enough to pick a siege that is already crowded, or maybe even worse, what if you pick a siege that gets crowded after you picked it? So you might be progressing your character, playing for a few days, building up your different bases and going through and doing the whole thing, and then maybe you log in on Sunday and the server's full and you can't get in for 2 hours. Like, that might very well happen, and all of your...
It hasn't happened, so they might be gaslighting players. But then again, if we look at the Dune servers, they opened up like a fuck ton of servers on the launch day, not the launch day, the like early access day.
Progression, you can bring your character across sieges, but all of your base progression, all of your storage, everything that you've built up over the first few days, if the siege then becomes crowded later on and you just can't log in because you're in queue for nobody's leaving, like that could be potentially very, very annoying. Another problem is going to be if you happen to be a person that's playing with a large group of friends or even a big guild. Now, currently the guild size is capped at about 32 people, which is about half of the total cap per siege.
So I haven't gotten to those multiplayer elements yet. So that's concerning. And again, what MMO do you know? Also, what's up, Keith? Yeah, my beard grows back fast and glorious. It's going to grow back thicker than it ever was before. I'm jealous of the network speed, though. I have 1,150. Yeah, you see, I pay a lot more for mine. That's why. Imagine calling this an MMO when 32 people will be the maximum faction, like the maximum guild size. And that's half the player base. That's not an MMO. That's why I keep saying this. That's not an MMO. Multiplayer online game, but not an MMO.
Doesn't leave a lot of extra room for any non-guild players before all of a sudden the siege that you're in and all of you have progressed your bases on and all of your storage and your inventory. If there are more than 60 people trying to get into your siege, your sub-server of the main server, you might just be locked out for half a day. I mean, we don't really know. We're going to have to see how a few subsequent days post-launch end up going. And then there's the whole deep desert. Now, in a recent interview with Shroud, we learned what to expect in terms of player counts for this map at release. And And those numbers do have me a bit worried. Currently, at launch, the Deep Desert looks to be capped at 300 concurrent players, quite a bit lower than the roughly 1,000 that we had heard previously.
See, again, I feel like this game is falling into the New World trap. Remember where, like, I don't know if anyone remembers the marketing material of New World, where they were saying it was revolutionary, that you could have, like, 20v20 battles on the same server. And I wanted to laugh my ass off at that. This is weird, to be honest. What do you mean the population sizes keep? It's not surprising. It's gone up today because today is the actual release, and 5 days ago was the early release. Solution, don't log out, just wall run in your base. You know what the funny thing about that is, Sasha? That will kill your character because you have to manage your water consistently. It was revolutionary for them. Yeah, they should have been fucking taken straight to the revolving door and kicked the fuck out. I don't know how Amazon paid the best devs in the world to make the shittiest MMO, but they managed to do that. Meanwhile, in Guild Wars 2 50v50, exactly. This is what I mean when I say the old giants have got it right. This I cannot call an MMO. 300 people maximum? 60 people per siege, and that's like half the player base? Is one guild? Yeah, fuck off. That's not an MMO. Why do companies hire marketing people to oversell the game and end up under-delivering when you could just do the opposite? Build up over time and eventually dominate your space. Because they are looking at... it's a time dependency issue, right? The time dependency issue is that you are beholden to shareholders, and shareholders don't want to wait the next 10 years to see a return on investment. They want their return on investment within like the next year or two. And the issue becomes, if a company doesn't go after the biggest pile of money, then the shareholders can vote to get rid of the people who are in power of that company because they didn't go after the biggest pile of money. That's the way it kind of works. If you are ever beholden to shareholders, you're fucked. That's the real issue with a lot of these gaming companies. The other issue comes in here. I'll pull out the graph for this, right? I'll pull out Paint. The patience issue. Get rid of the shareholders. Yes, exactly. But there's also another issue. Let's say you have a really, really good team of devs, right? These really, really good team of devs build a game. The game is incredible. The game is amazing. This is your population size. This is your time. Over time, people realize how incredible this game is. And the population chart goes like that. One of these game devs who's the team lead becomes the CEO. One of them becomes like the game director, whatever the fuck. Now let's look at another scenario. Here are your game devs. Surrounding your game devs are the marketing team. Game devs make a decent game. Or they're trying to make a decent game at least. But guess what? No one wants to wait 10 fucking years to see that return on investment. But what one of these marketers in here can do is they will push this game. They will AstroTurf YouTube. They will put out a bunch of trailers. They will lie through their fucking teeth. And on launch, you'll have this many people instead of this many people. Whereas if it was just the game devs, you'd have that small chunk of people down here, right? So now, if this is a big company, the CEO, who doesn't play MMOs anymore, or who never did, looks at this business model and goes, wow, this guy in marketing fucking 20x'd the sales of our dog shit game. He needs a promotion. This guy who has no fucking clue how video games run, how they work, becomes the game director, becomes the fucking CTO, becomes something else important. These guys become little wages in an office who are always at the same level, always deving games, never making decisions, and this fucking guy in marketing is now telling them what to do. Because the game's player base started up here and collapsed into nothing after 90 days. But wow, look how good he did. Wow, he 20x'd the sales. We can go back to our shareholders and tell them how amazing our product is because we made 5 billion sales instead of, a few 100,000. And then the game's dog shit because instead of spending all your resources on making a good game, you're spending maybe 20% of your resources on your devs, and then the rest of the resources are on the cash shop he told you to put into the game. They're on the fucking marketing and advertising of the game. They're on a whole bunch of pitch meetings to a bunch of investors. You're spending 80% of your resources not actually building a good game. And these poor fucks in here who just wanted to make a good game are the most screwed. That's how that works. 3 of them become child molesters. Yeah, no, that comes later. So when the game's about here and everyone knows about the game, that's when you find out that the CEO who never played MMOs and the CTO who was a marketing guy have all been on Epstein Island fucking toddlers the whole time as well. That comes later, after the game's suggestions. And then instead of going to prison, what these guys do is they go back into the game company and they start raping Susan under the desk and taking pictures of it and laughing at her until Susan kills herself while they're drinking Susan's breast milk and no one knows what the fuck is going on. And also all of these guys in the middle who can't take this shit anymore, leave. So anyway, I was thinking that Blizzard's doing pretty well as a company, right? They're making some solid stuff right now. Have you ever played Genshin Impact? Yes, I've tried it out. It's not for me. I can see why people like it. It's like Breath of the Wild with little girls that people want to molest.
And as just covered, we know that each server has a single deep desert that the 20 sub-server sietches all feed into. And those 20 sietches, each with a cap of 60 concurrent players, is 1,200 concurrent players max. If you have a full server...
That's the thing, Faith, is I can't play Genshin Impact while taking a shit. That would cut into my chess time. I exclusively play chess when I take shits. It infuriates my wife. She's like, I can hear the sounds on your phone. I know you're playing chess in there. She's so mad about it. Always take a dump and play chess. That's my thinking hour. I don't need other games on my phone. Chess is good enough.
With max player count, there's 1,200 people spread across the sietches, all feeding into one server, Deep Desert, and that Deep Desert can only hold 300 concurrent max players. That means 1/4 of the max concurrent player base on any given server can get into the endgame at any given time. And the remaining 3/4, they just...
Think about how sad of a system that is. Only 25 people, like only 1/4 of 25% of your player base can be in the endgame at any point in time. That fucking sucks dick. I wish I could play chess in the toilet. I can't play one-handed though. You're not supposed to jerk off in the bathroom. You're supposed to take dumps there. Have you played Balatro? No, but I've seen that everyone fucking loves it, and I'm scared of that game a little bit.
Just got to stay in Haga Basin on their sietches until one of the 300 cap players decides to leave the Deep Desert. So if more than 300 people want to play, yeah, you're going to be sitting in queues to get into the end game, to get into the Deep Desert. And that's the issue, I think, between the sietches being capped at 60 max players and the Deep Desert being capped at 300 max concurrent players. Forget about any potential launch issues with like servers being clogged and queue times and down servers. Anyone that's on a busy server or siege could be looking at queue times in general to get into their siege and or to get into the Deep Desert, and that could be a problem for some people for many days, potentially even weeks. That is one of my first primary biggest concerns. Next up, there is the combat. And I mean, it's not really a...
I fucking knew it. I knew he was going to talk about the combat. I knew that the combat was going to be an issue. The combat is the fucking worst part of this game, I would say. And it's not even that bad, but it is definitely the worst part of this game.
Concern per se. I just wish it were a little better feeling. It's good enough that I've still played for over 200 hours and have enjoyed myself, so yeah, there's that. But I just want to reiterate, I think Melee in particular, even with some of the improvements that have been made, it's still not very impactful feeling. Now, I know concessions are often made with games like this, these big shared open world games, especially ones that have free building where players can build bases everywhere that all of the other players...
Thank God this game doesn't allow you to Fortnite shit everywhere. I don't want it to be good so badly. I think it is good. I think it's a solid survival game. It's just not an MMO. And I'd say the shittiest part of this game is probably the combat.
See, and the fact that you do have other players running around up to...
It's just, and it's not why wouldn't he talk about the combat. It's the fact that I knew he was going to shit on the combat as not being good.
60 in the Haga Basin, up to 300 in the Deep Desert, and that each of these maps are absolutely gargantuan with no loading screens while you're in these areas going through all of these different zones. That's really cool, but all of that stuff does come at a cost pulled from elsewhere, and it definitely feels like the impactful feeling of combat is one of those areas where that has been pulled. And when this topic
the problem with the Dune combat in particular is, especially when you're dealing with a group of enemies, the second, it's all the fucking animation locking and shit. So like, let's say someone's got a shield and you've got a melee build and you want to run in and you want to stab them through the shield. You have to do the Dune thing where you have to use a heavy attack and then slowly slide your weapon through the shield to kill the guy. But you've got like 7 different people gunning you down at the same fucking time. And you can't go anywhere because you're animation locked. It's such a fucking bad system. Their combat needs to be way better. Way, way, way better. If they isolate the game into a more compact version instead of trying to be an MMO, maybe there are too many mechanics compared to Rust. No, I think they could do that. I think that they need to not look at this game as an MMO. Right? I think the whole idea of them using the MMO title is such a fucking bad idea. Sounds like Conan. Yeah, it heavily draws off of Conan. It's a good survival game. It is not a good MMO.
Is brought up. People often ask, like, what does it mean for combat not to feel good? Now, I'd say that this is basically a culmination of any given game's...
That clip right there. That clip.
Feel good. Now, I'd say...
This one right here. Here's one of the issues with this game, right? I know exactly where he is in the game. He's in the Haga Basin on the eastern side of the map. How do I know that? Because I've killed those 2 fucking bandits 25,000 times to farm them for resources. That's a bad mechanic. The fact that I've got this entire world and I just need to keep going back to these 2 pieces of shit to extract blood out of their vaginas and to get scrap metal, that's a bad mechanic. I have 0 reason to go and explore around this part. I can tell you're disappointed. I'm actually not. I'm actually not disappointed. I'm annoyed, and I spurged out on Twitter and made a whole fucking post about why I'm pissed off that a game like this that can stand on its own 2 feet keeps using the MMO label. You know what? Actually, you're right, Faith. I'm disappointed that they tried to sell this as an MMO. I'm not disappointed that they tried to sell this as a survival game. This is a good survival game. But I'm fucking irritated as fuck that a bunch of retards in management keep looking at games like this and thinking, let me strap the MMO label onto this. That'll get people to buy it, because that fucks me off so much.
That this is basically a culmination of any given game's animations, the sound effects, some UI elements, and input latency, and any other forms of feedback players get.
Also, AI in this game they're retarded. The combat AI are fucking retarded. They could have done a much better job with that.
Whenever you swing a sword, shoot a gun, or cast an ability. Now, I will say again, I think the range combat feels decent. It's not the most visceral third-person shooting that I've ever...
So you see that where he like has to like slide the knife in slowly and the shield turns red and shit? You are animation locked the entire fucking time that's happening. Which means if you're surrounded by 2 other enemies, you're dead. They will gun you down.
Experienced in the sound and visual feedback department, but it's still good enough that it feels decent when you're shooting targets. I will add that movement...
It's not good enough. I don't think it's good enough. It needs more work. It's much better once you get out of the Hugger Basin and you're into the late game areas, or the areas where there's PvE and PvP, where you have to think about shit, and where the map gets wiped once a week. But in the very beginning of the game, I think new players are going to play that. They're going to see how shitty the basic combat is, and they're just going to be turned off and uninstall the game.
On the other hand, it feels fantastic, specifically once you've unlocked any speed boost abilities, like the Bene Gesserit Sprint or the Trooper's Shigawire Cable. Those combined with
that wire cable is so fucking... Oh, it's the goat. I haven't tried the Bene Gesserit Sprint, but this cable shit, Trooper Cable... It's the best fucking ability because you can also stun people with it.
Sensor belts has you zipping around the environment, literally flying across giant swaths of land, and that feels fantastic. I think my biggest gripe, though, with like the baseline combat and movement in this game is it all feels kind of sluggish and slow, like you're kind of lumbering, pulling out your weapon, aiming down sights, even as your character moves around. The movement with the Shigawire Cable and flying and all of that feels really good, but the base movement and the base combat, not super visceral, not super tight, and I wish it were...
I don't know if I agree with him or not on that one. I suppose he's right. Like, some of the game movement is like really weird because some of it feels really good. Like using the Shigawire, dodging, your dodge bar, all of that shit feels good. And then you've got like really, really clunky animations that follow that up. Right? Like, for instance, when you swing a sword, when you reload a gun, some of the movement stuff that you do feels really fucking clunky. And it's so strange. And if I had to say clunky versus smooth, I'd say it's 70% clunky, 30% smooth.
Or a little bit more snappy. Just my personal preference. While on the topic of combat, I do have concerns about the lack of PvE difficulty as well as variety. It's simply not there. The game is not very difficult and there's not a lot of variety in the PvE side of things. Now, they do progressively add more enemy types a la new weapons that they wield as you move through the zones in Haga Basin. And then you get to the end game where they have their own variants in the deep desert, but it's all still just like humans using weapons, that's what it is. So enemies start off with a mix of having like basic daggers and ranged pistols, and then over time you come across melee enemies.
It's like Guild Wars 2, it's got good gems, but a bunch of oof. I wouldn't even say that, Super. I'd say Guild Wars 2 has a bunch of elements that could have been good, but were executed poorly. Whereas Dune has a bunch of elements that I don't see a way that they could fix them. At all. Right? Like if I look at like underwater combat in Guild Wars 2, I can see a way that there's potential there that if the Guild Wars 2 devs really wanted and they had the time to do it, they could really make this something incredible. But there are chunks of the interactions and shit that happen in Dune that I see zero way for them to fix. That's what's concerning to me. Most of it is like around the combat. So if you came to this game for combat, you're gonna be disappointed. I think the looting as well is really shitty. Like the way looting works, you've either gotta like press down a bar. It's not like insta loot. So every now and then you'll be like holding down the E key, and like, you know, if an enemy rounds a corner, then you're fucked. Right? You've got to like wipe out everything in an area and then you can loot. There's no like, I'm out of ammo, I'm just going to grab the bullets off this body, turn around, and then use those last bullets to like save myself from this next enemy. That's not happening. I suppose you could do it with the spacebar key, but then you got to spam spacebar and you might fill your bags, which has happened to me several times.
Things like swords and rapiers, and you've got ranged ones that have the entire suite of weapons you expect: rifles, snipers, shotguns, SMGs, LMGs, flamethrowers. Some of them even start tossing rocks at you, which is funny. But yeah, it's just a lot of humans with different weapons. So as you move up the tiers, progressing through the zones in Haga Basin, the enemies get...
The problem is, what kind of extra enemies could you put into the Dune universe aside from humans? Because New World had this exact same problem where you were just fighting fucking skeletons and wolves all day. What kind of enemies could you put into the Dune universe? You could put in some Ixian technology. You could put in some off-world creatures from the Harkonnen worlds. You could have mini sandworms that you have to kill. There is a lot that could be done there, but this is a fair criticism. Insectoid and lizards. I don't think there were many. Hold on. Arrakis Dune Wiki. Here you go. Burrowing animals such as the kit fox, kangaroo mouse, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Fauna. So there are things that they could put in here. There are creatures that they could go out of their way to put into this game. Aside from you're going to be fighting just human beings. That is a sad thing. This is one of the reasons I probably say, if you're in it for the combat, if you're in it for playing this as an MMO, this is not the game for you and it's not going to be worth your money.
Get tougher, they'll have more health and deal more damage and have more variety of weapons, and that challenge remains.
Faith, I do this with every game as well. I did this with New World as well. When I see a game that does have potential, yes, it makes me want to theory craft the fixes. That's why I keep on theory crafting the fixes for Guild Wars 2. That's why I think that they should take a look back at underwater combat. That's why I want them to revise the base game story of Guild Wars 2, because they could do a much better job with it. Pitch black monsters could be included as a mechanic. Things that only come out at night. They could do that shit.
Until you make that tier's corresponding weapons, gear, and personal shields, which then makes it easier for you to deal with them and take them out.
I really need to get a personal shield for all of this shit, because a bunch of the combat feels like bullshit, where it feels like if you got a personal shield, you can just steamroll everything, and if you don't, you're going to fall over dead all the time.
Quicker. But there's not much complexity in this combat, nor is there anything that really requires what I would call group coordination, on the PvE side at least. The closest thing would be like working together in the deep desert to try to lure the sandworms away while your friends harvest spice. But no, there aren't boss fights that require multiple players doing different things to win the encounter. This game just doesn't really have that as a focus. Now they have—
I swear to God, I'm never gonna build myself any flying mechanism in Guild Wars 2. I'm just going to be that asshole standing on the ground with a rocket launcher the whole time.
I've talked about adding more complexity, something that looks more akin to MMO dungeons or raids into the game PvE, but as of now, it's a fairly basic PvE experience that gets tougher until you power up to that current tier, and you climb that ladder all the way to Endgame, where there is also some similar points of interest with PvE enemies, but the big danger and focus in the deep desert is the PvP, as you're dealing with other players while you attempt to farm resources from those points of interest, or to harvest spice, or to gather ore, etc. As much as I enjoy clearing the camps, the strongholds, and the testing stations, I would love a more fleshed out PvE experience and some proper PvE group content in the future, more dungeons with puzzles, more difficult boss encounters, etc. Now on to bugs. I have still noticed some occasional bugs cropping up. Many of these seem to have to do with weapon swapping, abilities, and your movement. It just seems that at times, if you try swapping weapons while you're also using an ability, things can break. And by break, I mean all of a sudden you literally can't shoot your weapon, you can't aim down sights. There have even
I haven't had any of these issues. The one bug that I've come across is the power pack that you attach to your character for using any powered weapon. Right, you'll see this little energy bar down here in the corner. Sometimes the power pack, you gotta unequip and re-equip it again for it to work. And that's really fucking annoying, and I hope they fix that.
been times where I couldn't crouch for some reason. Now this may happen like once every few hours. It's not super frequent, but it is really annoying when it does happen. And usually I'll just have to try doing a little bit of everything until the issue resolves itself. Worst case scenario, I will just relog real quick and that fixes the issue every time. So that's annoying, but on the plus side, most of the other bugs that I've experienced in prior builds, it seems like they have all been patched out and fixed, which that's a great thing. Now let's talk about PvP. It seems like PvP at the very end game still needs a bit of work. I heard one fellow tester phrase it this way. They said that currently the most effective way to take out another player is to hop in your ornithopter and squash them like a bug. And that's because the time to kill at the moment is so high if you engage.
I already thought about this. I thought about the idea that everyone's gonna hop in a fucking vehicle and run out there. Guess what? I'm speccing heavy weapons so that when I do actually get there, I'm just gonna start hitting everyone's vehicles. I don't care if I die, I just want to ruin their day because crafting vehicles takes for fucking ever.
In any non-vehicle forms of combat, that being the melee, using ranged weapons, or abilities. Shields are very strong, that is true, yes, you have to contend with that, but more so, it's just the fact that you get iframe dodging and can literally just keep avoiding damage so long as you maintain enough stamina, and as you progress into the late game, you get the better gear and you get more stats in the various class skill trees. You have a massive pool.
Can you spec into summoning a sandworm? Yes. You can get a thumper, and I know there's a way you can get the hooks to ride sandworms. I just haven't figured that part out yet.
Stamina, so you can just...
As far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I know you can summon sandworms. I've actually watched a guy do this to Co-Carnage, right? Where I was watching Co-Carnage, he was playing Dune, and he like crafted these boots that's supposed to like stealth him away from sandworms and shit. And so he was like running through the desert thinking he was perfectly fine. And then a sandworm just shows up and he's like, why the fuck aren't my boots working? And then on the VoIP channel, a naked guy behind him is like, damn, I don't know why your boots aren't working either. So you can summon a sandworm that'll fuck up other players if you do it right.
Keep dodging and avoiding all damage for a very long time. Also, the opportunity to run away is very easy, and to the point that direct one-on-one fights pretty much require both parties to stay put like a duel. If anybody wants to leave at any point and disengage, they typically can with all of the various movement skills in the game, the Shigawara cable, the Bene Gesserit sprint, plus the suspensor belts and more. It's just, it makes it so that people can leave fights whenever they want. So again, the best way to kill players come endgame is to run them over with vehicles most of.
Yeah, he's probably right about that. The other issue is that this game is going to face the new world problem. And the new world problem is that everyone runs at the same speed, right? So if you're chasing someone down and they've got a shield, shooting them does nothing but give them distance on you. And there's almost zero mobility stuff in this game. So, like, the combat is not the reason to play this game. I have killed someone in PvP. That was fun. But I think I was kind of beating up a child, which is the way it's meant to be. But it wasn't a fight. It was more like I was just fucking... I walked into a kindergarten and started stomping on the nearest 5-year-old. It really wasn't a fight. How will they handle the ultimate PvP combat technique? DDoSing the router. Well, you see... There's this other thing you can do where you dox the guy back, you find out where he lives, and you ruin his life. If they're going to bring PvP into the real world, so should you. That's a joke, by the way. FBI police, that's a joke.
of the time. Like, that's the fastest time to kill. And so unfortunately, as of now, it seems that ground warfare, anything that's not vehicle fighting, is just a matter of how long do me and my opponent want to keep doing this dance back and forth until one of us gets bored and decides to leave. Also on PvP, I just want to say here again that I would really love for them to add some official PvP servers to the game. With the recent announcement of there being rentable private servers and those giving players the option to allow for—
Oh, rentable private servers. You mean like Valheim? You mean like the game that isn't an MMO?
for full PvP across the entirety of Haga Basin rather than just being restricted to the tiny areas around the handful of shipwrecks that there are. I'm not quite sure why they don't now also have at least 1 or 2 official servers that have the same rule set. The thing is, the Deep Desert PvP is quite different from what Haga Basin PvP would look like, mainly because come Deep Desert, everybody's got access to ornithopters, so any ground-focused combat just becomes optional. And as I just mentioned, if you don't want to engage in ground PvP,
a rocket launcher, aim at the ornithopters. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to be shooting everyone out the sky because I know everyone's going to be trying to fly around.
You can just walk away, zoom away from the fight, hop in your ornithopter, and then fly off somewhere else. I think starting the game in Haga Basin that had some more PvP options, even if there were just multiple zones of the 12 that are in Haga Basin, if they had like 2 or 3 of them flagged for PvP, or the whole thing, if you chose a server that was just full PvP enabled, and you would be told this. And
hold on 1 second. My wife is calling me.
Love you, bye.
Bye. Sorry, it was just my wife complaining about how fucking cold it is. My daughter just woke up and her hands are freezing.
And there would be fewer of them. I'm sure there'd be majority PvE focused Haga Basins, but if they had a couple of official PvP focused ones, give players that additional option, I think—
See, he wants that. He wants PvP. But the problem is, the more PvP you put into a game like this, the lower the player base is going to be. PvP always ends up with the trolls kind of taking over the PvP and using some scummy backhand tactic to fuck everyone else over. And so you're kind of forced into the position where you also have to use the scummy backhand tactic to try and survive. So the more PvP they put into this game, the quicker they kill their player base. That's the concern. It would be nice. I'd love more PvP in a game like this. When will people understand this? Not every game needs PvP. I think, personally, I think this game needs PvP because the combat's so shit. That's the problem. The only intelligent combat you're ever going to get is going to be against another human being. And the problem is everyone's going to use cheese tactics like flattening other people with the ornithopter. They're not going to actually play the game to play the game. So either they need to be exceptional at balancing the PvP, which I don't think they are if they can't even get combat right, or they need to remove PvP from the game and make their PvE a lot better. This is the mistake that New World made. At one point, New World was full loot open world PvP, and people were excited for it because there wasn't anything janky enough to fuck everything up. And then they changed it to more theme park, and then they're shocked that the last minute change that they made fucking destroyed their game that they hadn't been focusing on. This game should have an option to enable PvP, not forced PvP, because what most people who say needs PvP really mean is they want forced PvP. Yeah, look, there should be... I think this game could get away with PvP forced enabled zones, as well as being able to enable and disable PvP. So have both. And it would still be okay, but the issue is with the way this game is constructed, the more PvP they throw into this game, the quicker you're going to lose your player base. I'm yet to hear of a PvP-focused MMO that doesn't convert itself into PvE after a few weeks or months. Yeah, so am I. It's because all of these guys fucking suck at balancing PvP, because game devs are not very good at predicting how players are going to break their game. That's the issue. And What Faith is saying, that full PvP games are cash grabs, is kind of right. Because what you can do is you can make a full PvP game, and then you strap a cash shop to it that's pay to win. And then you know the guy who beats you isn't going to be the most skilled player, where you get your ass handed to you and you're like, wow, that was incredible. I need to learn from what he did to me. You're going to be like, I know this guy just swiped his fucking credit card 7 or 8 times, and that's why he's beating the shit out of me. There was that one presentation that some psychologist gave to a bunch of game devs at some office, where he was like a Wall Street banker and an Arab prince get in a fight with each other over a game. Who wins? And the answer was the guys who built the cash shop. Because both of those people will spend an infinite amount of money to cover for their ego in the game. And then they'll call it skill. But the only skill they have is entering their fucking digits into a video game, into a cash shop in a video game. The way Conan Exiles has PvP set up is you can either have PvP disable or have PvP enable at certain times, like 6 to 6. Maybe they need to port that system over then. Game devs would do well to get actual testers. Yeah, but why would you... why would you get actual testers anymore when Ashes of Creation has proven that you can get people to pay you money to test their game? Why the fuck would you spend money to get testers when you can just call your product Alpha Access, charge $500, and then a bunch of people will do the testing for you? If you can cash grab, you're going to fucking cash grab. And that's exactly what Ashes did to people. And it's never going to stop. Have you seen the fucked up builds that people made for Guild Wars 1? Yes. Yes. And that's why I say game devs are not very good at predicting what players are going to do in any MMO. Or any game, really. Because players figure out ways to do integer overflows, how to fuck around with certain things that are irrelevant, and then all of a sudden they're overpowered because they stacked some buff infinitely, or they used some item that was esoteric or strange to get out of an ability that they shouldn't have gotten out of. Or, like in WoW, they bring a disease into a major city and fuck everyone up.
Think that'd be great, because I think there's a lot of fun potential with ground engagement and fights before everybody has their ornithopters, before everyone has the best gear and all of their skill tree unlocked. It's the same reason I enjoy like low-level PvP and MMOs. I think there's a lot of fun to be had as we're going through the power progression and getting in fights here and there before everyone has their optimized setups, just making the most of what you have. So I would love to see that. Oh, and there's one final thing that I want to mention in this section of the video, and that's just the fact that I think the way they presented Dune Awakening, both in what they showcase in videos, but also in that beta weekend, really did the game a disservice. Like, the game has way more interesting stuff and more variety than what people might...
This is the same thing I was saying about the beginning of the game. The downtime element in the beginning of the game is going to turn a lot of people off, because it's literally the worst. Like, all the worst parts of Dune are all the worst parts of the beginning experience for the first 5 hours of the game. So that's going to turn people off immediately.
I've initially seen in that, specifically in that beta. Mainly, the game just starts to open up and get way more varied, literally like immediately after the first 3 zones, which is all we had access to in that beta weekend. Once you start venturing into the areas in and surrounding the rift, it's just a whole lot cooler. We have this like massive crevice, basically, this big ravine that extends across multiple zones. I think it extends the center and the width of like 3 or 4 zones, and it's many, many layers deep, and all along those layers are different points of interest. You got crashed shipwrecks in there, you've got mining facilities, you've got enemy strongholds, you've got
I haven't gotten to this point yet, but it seems like the deeper you get into Dune, the more there is to do, especially at the end game. But this shit right here, you don't see this. You play the game for 20 hours, you don't see any of this, you think that there's nothing in the game.
Ones that run from the top to the bottom, the deeper you...
Thanks for the follow, Lasse.
you get in this rift, it looks cooler and cooler. And that is just one example of an area that's way more interesting and varied than what the beta with only having Southern Haga Basin and the Western and Eastern Familius Gap. Everything was basically swaths of sand dunes and islands of rock within.
It's not a good game. I think it's a good survival game, Faith. I still think it's a good survival game. I think it's shit as an MMO. I think it needs to not call itself an MMO.
Which were points of interest, and a lot of those points of interest look the same. It was like the encampments of enemies, right? It gets way more interesting, it gets way more vertical. Not only is there that deep ravine called the Rift, but there's also towering rocks everywhere and enemy encampments that are holed up in there. And also a lot of the enemy points of interest are much bigger. And I mean literally, like there are points of interest that are 5 times bigger than the biggest points of interest that you came across in those first 3.
That's the problem. That's the problem right there, is no one's going to see that. No one is going to see those points of interest because most players are going to quit before they even get there.
Few areas. The point is there's just way more cool areas, points of interest, and environments than what many players have seen thus far. And I think that's a shame because I think even if they...
Hold on, I bought Dune, played it for an hour, refunded. Slow, terrible first hour, combat didn't feel great at all. It might get better later, but for $50, no thanks. Well, that's the thing, Lasser. That's what I've been saying this whole time, is I felt the exact same way you did. Right? Now, I'm lucky enough that I had enough time that I went back and started playing the game more. And if you have limited time in the day, I should probably give this caveat. If you have limited time in the day, or you're just looking for a game you want to jump into and play, and you're not like a survival game player who loves survival games, it's not going to be worth $50. It's just not. If you're an MMO player, it's not going to be worth your time. The game, I can't believe I'm saying this. This is such a cliche of a thing to say. But the game does get better later. It doesn't get perfect. It doesn't get great. It does get better later, but no one is gonna fucking get to that point in the game. Because the first 5 hours I played was literally me killing the same 2 bandits farming resources. I saw a video of you insulting Frogan. Perfection, by the way. I mean, was I just stating facts about her? I don't remember insulting her. But, Lasser, your opinion on saying that and saying it's not worth $50 to you, I completely understand. Because I played it. I played, like my last stream. You can go and look at it. I called it Dune Awakening, right? If you go look at that, after 5 hours, I say this game is not good. Because until that point, the game was not fucking good. The only reason I say I was wrong about Dune is because it gets better later. But that beginning, that downtime beginning, fuck, if you don't have the time to play that kind of game, don't play it. It's not going to be worth your time.
Opened up just like 1 or 2 additional zones in that beta weekend. People
getting it on sale might be better. Devilis, I'm going to tell you why that doesn't work. The amount of time you have in the day, the value you put on 1 hour of your time is more valuable than whether you spent $100 or $50 on a game. If you play this game and you feel like you've lost 3 hours of your life, then it doesn't matter if you got it on sale or not. It wasn't worth it. You really want it to be good. I do want it to be good. I'm a Dune simp. It looks so generic. Maybe it is. But I will say that it's one of the better survival games I've seen, the longer you play it. But the problem is most people, and they're completely valid for this, are not going to play as long as I have and get away with it. Right? They're going to play for like 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours, and they're going to say this is fucking dog shit and never touch it again. I would have been fine with it, but honestly, the combat felt bad too. As you said, I don't know why they didn't make it interesting at all in the beginning. They could have. That's the part that's fucking pissing me off so much, Lasser, is for the first 5 hours, You just fight retarded AI enemies that have no variety or variance whatsoever. There's guy with sword and guy with gun, and both of them don't know where the fuck you are. You can walk up behind them, molest them, steal their fucking wallet, fuck them, get them pregnant, take the kids in the divorce, and they still won't have noticed you. That's the problem with all of those enemies. The whole Haga Basin area is Tutorial Island, and it takes too long for players to want to go further than that.
Have had a better impression, but regardless, I don't really care. I'm not here to sell the game. I just think it's worth noting for people that there is more interesting things. It's still the desert, it's still mostly sand, but it does get more varied.
That's just survival games in general. Do people want their diamond armor set in 30 minutes? So it's not about them getting the best stuff and the best progression. It's about interesting things happening while you get to that progression. That's the problem, right? Is nothing interesting is happening until you start hitting the quests, until you start talking to people. Okay, let's continue.
And interesting. There are even zones that have legitimate plant life, like an arid desert with cacti and shrubs and stuff, which I don't think a lot of people were expecting. They thought it was all just going to be sand dunes and rock isles like it was in the first 3 zones, but no. For still being a desert, it gets more varied and interesting. The points of interest get far more interesting and varied in terms of how they look and their size. It just gets a lot better than what a lot of people may be led to believe.
Yeah, that's the problem. So you don't encounter drum sand. You don't encounter quicksand. You don't encounter the worm mechanics. Aside from walk in the sand for too long, and then the worm shows up. You encounter none of that in the beginning area. That's the problem. It's so dull in comparison to some of the mechanics that exist later, and it fucking ruins the experience for someone. To the point that they're going, yeah, fuck this, I don't want to play. And I get it. I get why people feel that way.
All right, I want to talk about now some things that I got wrong. There were some concerns that I addressed in prior videos that in the end turned out to not be a problem. One thing that I vocalized was disliking the apparent requirement to melee once you started coming across shielded enemies. The weapons we had during the beta test weekend were hilariously ineffective against shields, which led me to believe that melee via the slow blade attack was the only means of dealing with them. And then there's the fact that the further you get into the game, the more and more shielded enemies you come across. Well,
so that's one of the biggest problems is there's a skill chasm that happens in the game that's currently there, and this is also going to turn players off, is the game will accidentally convince you can't break shields with guns. It's so dumb. It's so fucking dumb.
It turns out that was incorrect. You aren't forced to melee for 2 reasons. One, there are multiple classes of weapons that specifically counter shields. In fact, in the beta, there was a blueprint for a purple SMG, which I found after making the video where I complained about this, and that gun would tear through any shielded enemy in just a couple of seconds. Now, beyond that, there are also many other weapons that counter shields, like the drill shot class of guns, where you fire these multiple rounds of drills, and once they hit a shield, they chew through it. If the enemy doesn't dodge after like a second, it passes through and deals a heavy amount of damage. And there are many more weapons that are great.
Guess what? That's going to be completely worthless in PvP because everyone's going to see it coming and you've got like a second to dodge. The only one who's going to be hit by those drill shots would be me, because I play on 200 ping.
Against shields beyond those 2 examples. Aside from those weapons though, even shielded enemies are vulnerable to regular gunfire anytime they themselves shoot. So when you come across, for example, those big guys who are lumbering around with LMGs and shielded, or they've got flamethrowers, anytime they fire their weapon, you may not have noticed, but their shields drop just like yours do when you fire your weapon, which means you can fire away with whatever weapon that you're using and they are going to take damage. You're not shooting against their shield while they are shooting, and that's the...
It's incredibly fucking stupid that Force has to explain that to you, and the game never does. The game never illustrates this visually to you, that this is exactly what's happening. It's so dumb that a YouTuber in a video has to go out of his way to say that. That's a failure of design.
The opportunity to kill them because their shields drop when they shoot you. So
if this game was actually good, you'd be playing it, not watching videos. Well, I was playing it. I was playing it earlier today, Faith. I've been playing it. It's just not a stream game. This is not a game you're going to watch someone play for the game. This is not a game that's going to blow up on Twitch. It's just not. It's not a good game for that. It's not watchable content. I have played the game, and I have been playing it. I was playing it before I started streaming.
You shoot back, aim for the head, you'll kill them in a few shots. Another thing that I got wrong was my concern that Dune as an IP
and here's what's even worse. Playing the game feels better than watching the game. I've watched gameplay of Dune, and I was like, Jesus, I want to peel my fucking eyes out of my head. This is like watching the skinny kid in school fuck the biggest bitch in his class. It's horrific, and you know the smells coming out of it are terrible. But hey, if you're that skinny kid and you're plowing away at that fat kid, that fat bitch, you just gotta remember. Frogans are like scooters. You can ride them, but you probably don't want to tell your friends about it.
Would hold the game back in terms of variety of locations as well as enemy variety. Now that is pretty much the case for this current version of the game. We are on Arrakis at launch, and it is 95% desert with sand dunes and rocks and some extra variety that comes in the dungeons or testing stations where they've got some water, which translates to having some plant life. But it turns out that the Dune lore as a whole includes various other planets with vastly different biomes, other alien races besides just humans, which is all we're currently fighting.
Please say hi, Tori. Hi, Tori. I don't know why I'm saying that, but okay.
And there are even super advanced AI robots, and this variety of locations and enemies could and likely will eventually make its way into the game, assuming it's successful and they continue to support it for the months and years ahead.
I think it won't be successful. Not because the game doesn't have enough in it to be successful, but I think the initial player experience is too low tier, too low brow for people to want to go further. There's not enough in the initial experience. I think the game's going to fail to captivate a large audience or maintain a large audience who play this game for more than 5 hours. She flipped me off.
Ahead. Though at release, they are strictly focused on Arrakis and the different factions of humans there. There is definitely still potential within the Dune IP for way more variety. We in fact already know that the first big planned expansion that they're going to come out with is taking place on the polar ice caps of Arrakis, which means we'll be going from the barren sand desert to the barren ice desert. But at least it'll be white and blue instead of yellow and brown, right? Now,
yeah, that's not so important. I don't think changing the theming of the background is that important because their weather effects, the dynamic, like, surrounding, it feels like a world. What they need to do is they need to have an expansion where they just focus on the combat. They need to patch the shit out of the combat. They need to put in more enemies. They need to put in a lot more variety of stuff. But it's such a slow burn that it's going to turn people off. They need to not worry about new regions. They need to worry about fixing what they have now. This is such a fuck. Every fucking MMO always does this. They think that they can fix their problems by adding a new region. It's so irritating. Solve the problems you have instead of creating new problems.
Having gone over all of that, I do want to wrap up by mentioning the fact that some of the things that we've complained about and been concerned about in the past have improved over time. Changes that I've noticed while playing in the private closed beta over the past few weeks. First of all, the melee, the perma-stun lock issue that we all had a good laugh about during the PvP showcase with a bunch of streamers, that's been fixed. It is no longer an issue. A patch that went
still needs work. Still needs work. It's not good enough.
Live about a week on the CBT build after the Twitch showcase took care of it completely. Essentially now, whenever you're drained of stamina, you basically get this second wind that kicks in, nearly instantly refilling your bar. This comes with its own sound effect and animation, but the basic thing here is you can no longer ever be permanently stun locked as you were in those prior showcases. And there's also now a stamina cost to melee attacks, which means players attacking you.
I'll give it this. The solution that the Dune guys came up with for the stagger and stun locking was infinitely better than what the New World team came up with was. Because New World just gave up on stagger entirely. Whereas these guys at least are trying to fine-tune it.
you can no longer just infinitely spam that either. Now, while there are still some bugs that remain, I do have to mention it's far, far less. During the preview event where I made my initial early review, we had players being invisible, we had T-posing characters, we had certain interactions like retrieving all loot from chests not working, we had disappearing textures and clipping through the terrain. None of those issues have surfaced in the subsequent 100+ hours that I've played since.
I did get caught on the side, underneath my house. I built a ledge, and then my character got stuck underneath it, and I had to destroy the floor. So I don't know how many other issues other people are facing like that when it comes to interactions with surfaces and shit.
It's the beta test weekend and the preview event, so a lot of bugs and issues have been addressed.
Imagine this game ends up doing better than Borderlands 4. Wasn't Borderlands 4 the game where the CEO or something came out and said only real fans will give us $100 for the game or some shit? I think based on that alone, based on the attention the game's getting before it gets out, I think it might do better than Borderlands 4, even if it only does live for a month.
Also, across the board, performance has gotten better and better with every subsequent patch. In fact, during my time in the closed beta, they've been updating the game literally daily. So every day they would take down servers for about an hour early in the morning, sometime between 7 and 8 a.m. my time. And then when they came back up, there would be a new patch every time. And that patch would typically come with bug fixes, performance fixes, but also many balance adjustments and changes to mechanics. But yes, performance-wise, I would say in the past, my performance was good 95% of the time, whereas in the most recent build, as of yesterday, it's good 99% of the time. I still do get an occasional hiccup here and there, which for me on my rig,
I'd say it's it's good 75% of the time. I'd say there's still issues. I haven't come across a moment in time yet where the game has shut down or shit the bed entirely graphically, the way that Oblivion does. But it still needs work.
Includes a RTX 4090 and an i9 14900K. It's been mostly great. 99% of the time, performance is good. But yes, I do have...
And yeah, it was Randy Pisford said that shit. It was something you'll find a way to afford $80. Yeah, no, that's insane. Don't fucking say that to people. How out of touch do you have to be as a CEO to say that shit? You're entitled to people's fucking money. That's so retarded. Jesus.
I have a fairly beefy PC, so I would look out for feedback from people who are running the game on mid to lower end hardware.
Those fuckers are great. What you want to do, if you do play this game to the point that you can do this, is you want to find a group of players running through the sand, and you want to get one of those on your ass. Then you want to hop on the sand bike with the boost and drive past them, and then watch the worm eat them, and then you leave.
If that's what you have as well. So to wrap up this video, yes, if you haven't heard, while the game's not without its problems, I really like this game. I really do. I am super pumped for launch. I feel like a kid on Christmas, frankly, which doesn't happen all too often as the years go by. So I'm happy to embrace it and enjoy it whenever it does. I would by no means consider this a 10 out of 10 game.
It's
not even close. I would guess if I were to...
It's not a 10 out of 10 game. The first 5 to 7 hours of gameplay makes it a 3 out of 10 game, and if you somehow force your way through that hymen against the game's will, then it starts to become maybe a 7 out of 10 game. A real IGN 7 out of 10 game, you know? Because that's the score we give the games that suck our schmeat in the background. No, I would probably say currently it's a 6.5. It doesn't hit a 7. It's not good enough to hit a 7. I look at it this way. I can enjoy this game on a personal level. I like the mechanics of this game. I can see how this game could be an 8 out of 10 if you're playing it with friends. But it's not good enough for the widest, vast majority of people.
To try to peer into the future and guess what the public's average review score would be. I want to say it'll be between a 6 and an 8, probably not higher than an 8, but probably
between a 6 and an 8. 8 if you're playing with friends, 6 if you're playing alone.
Not lower than a 6. 6, 7, 8 out of 10 is where I expect the average review score to pan out. But for me personally, it gives me 10 out of 10 fun. I'm not saying I think it's a 10 out of 10 game.
It's not.
I'm saying on the 10 scale.
Ooh, 10 out of 10 fun. That's damn. This man is so positive. I'm genuinely jealous of Force and how positive of a human being he is. Like, man, I wish I had this kind of Buddhist-like enjoyment for things. This is not a 10 out of 10 fun game. Maybe for him personally it's that. But I'd say for me personally, it's like a 7 out of 10 fun game. For your average human being, it's probably a 5 out of 10 fun game. Because the downtime periods are really bad.
Of fun that I'm having, it's a 10 out of 10. I have 10 out of 10 fun. Make of that what you will. I don't know. I certainly hope they improve and address some or all of my concerns. But other than that, I'm really looking forward to jumping in this week. I'm likely going to be streaming the game some on Twitch. I've been doing that a little more frequently recently. So if you feel like swinging by, feel free. If you're sick of hearing about Dune, don't worry. We've got some other videos coming up. There's some more games that I'm covering. One that I'm actually really excited about that I'll be checking out during the launch week of Dune, which is kind of a bummer for me because I just wanted to no life it for at least a week, but I'll take a day off to check out this other game, and there'll be a video for that next week. But yeah, I'm looking forward to binging and having a lot of fun during this period, and maybe some of you are as well. It's going to be a mix. The game may very well have a mixed rating on Steam. I think there's a good chance of that, but like I've said before, just...
Is there mixed rating currently on Steam, or all the simps going fucking ballistic at it right now? Let's see. Let's look up Dune Awakening. What are the current reviews? Very positive. Now that's shocking. Not really. So look at what you'll notice, right, is his review makes sense to me because he's played this game deep into the endgame and found the fun after all that time. What you'll notice is all these new players will probably not like the game because they played 5 hours, 7 hours, and it's just fucking, it just shits all over them and they don't like it. And that's completely fair. Being a pig eating slop must be peaceful. You know what? Maybe it is. Maybe being a slop piggy is a joyful experience. Maybe there's bliss in eating slop. I mean, this entire second channel is just fucking slop. Right? My entire second channel is slop. Should I be shocked? Probably not. All survival games are more fun with friends because it cuts the grind time down a ton and you're playing with friends. I think it's not just survival games that are like that. Let's say, I think it's all games are always going to be more fun with your friends. Because if you've got good friends, they're usually more fun than the game itself. If I was to play Fallout 76 by myself, I'd want to kill myself. But if I was playing it with my friends, we'd be having the best time of our lives. Because we would be able to, you know, we would be out of our way to do the stupidest, dumbest shit and just laughing about it all the time, right? So it's like, think about it this way. Playing with a piece of shit by yourself makes you a freak. Finding a piece of shit on the side of the road and your friends are starting to fling it at each other while you're all drunk off your ass is going to be a fun experience. Because you all had a good time. Watching paint dry becomes a 3 out of 10 activity when you do it with friends. Exactly. Exactly. So let's see. Not recommended. Receive the product for free. Immediately disregard that opinion. Recommended. You see, these people have all got 33 hours, 16 hours, 87. The guy who played for 7 hours? Nah, fuck this game. I'm willing to bet people who have a higher playtime will recommend this game, and people who have a lower playtime will always say fuck this game, because the bounce rate from the initial game is enough to tell people to fuck off. 2 hours, 18 hours, one above was 6 hours, 7 hours, 3 hours. Do you see what I mean? This bitch's hymen is so tough to get through. The people who get to the other side get some enjoyment. But those who don't, they think fuck this game. All valid, in my opinion.